Hi, it's Robin McMahon here. I'm the host of Parenting Our Future. And if you're listening to this podcast, I want to thank you so much for being here. I also want you to know that I am a former angry mom. I used to yell and rage and threaten and punish my kids because I wasn't getting the cooperation or the behavior that I felt I should be getting. And I struggled for many years not knowing how to change or knowing what to do differently. It wasn't until I found the world of peaceful parenting that I learned why my kids acted the way they did, and also why I was so angry and triggered. I was able to heal my anger and leave my triggers behind so that I could focus on being the calm and confident parent I always expected myself to be. I can tell you that feeling connected to your kids is the best feeling in the world. My two boys are teenagers now, and we have a strong relationship that is rooted in deep connection. And where there is connection, there's cooperation. Parenting is the most important job we do, but it's the hardest job we do. And we do it without understanding the fundamentals of the way our kids grow and develop. And we do it without knowing the way their brains work or what their behavior is actually really telling us. So it's no wonder it's so hard. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, this is harder than I thought it would be. And that's where I come in. I can help you and I can support you so that you can have the cooperation and enjoy being a parent. You can book a free call with me on my website, parentingforconnection.com. And if you want to download my free guide, How to Turn a No into Cooperation, go to triggerfreeparents.com. I really hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Parenting Our Future. It's Robin McMahon here. Welcome back. Look, we are using Google and YouTube, and our kids are using these platforms as well. And I want to talk about them with an expert and find out if there is a seedy underbelly, if there's something that we should know about. Should we be protecting our kids? Should we be protecting ourselves? What's really going on these platforms that we should know about? This is something every parent should know about for themselves and for their kids. So I really want to welcome Mark Bergen to the show. Welcome, Mark. You have been one of the leading business journalists covering everything about Google for more than 7 years. Mark began reporting on the company for Recode, a respected Silicon Valley publication, then moved to Bloomberg in September of 2016. Before that, Mark covered telecom, technology, and media for Ad Age, the premier industry publication. And he worked as a freelance reporter from Asia for the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Time, Reuters, and the New Yorker. And he's frequently discussed his Google reporting on Bloomberg TV, CNBC, MSNBC, NPR, and several other media outlets. All right, Mark, welcome. I'm really happy to talk to you. I'm a little nervous to talk to you. I don't know what we're going to say yet. So it's really great to have somebody like you here. And I want to just make sure people know you have a book called Like, Comment, Subscribe, words that I have also said on a regular basis on my YouTube videos. And it's Like, Comment, Subscribe Inside YouTube's Chaotic Rise to World Domination. Oh my goodness. Okay, tell me what your book is about and what are we getting into here?
Sure. So this is, like the title said, it's a book about YouTube. It's the history of the company. It was started in 2005, just a few months after Facebook, and it's become, in under 2 decades, this just incredibly important and vital part of our lives, of culture, of entertainment, of media. It's sort of changed the landscape for so many things. And for a variety of reasons, it's kind of been overlooked. I think, like, given its size, and we pay so much attention to Facebook, and more recently we've been paying a lot of attention at Twitter. And I think YouTube is this really interesting story that is, in many ways, like, reflects the history of the internet in the past 2 decades. And then it says a lot about, like, the future of the online economy and the way we're moving. It's part of Google, which is one of the world's biggest and most fascinating and well-known companies. And there are just so many really interesting stories, both inside the company and then obviously on, like, the stars, the YouTube stars that have come up. And so that's the like this takes it all the way back and brings us to kind of where we are today.
Well, and they started out innocently, right? Just as a way to share your home videos with your friends and family.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for us to think about it now in 2022. But in 2005, like online video was clunky, often expensive in order to upload. This idea of like a free on-demand television on the internet was pretty
Yeah.
futuristic. I mean, YouTube was coming up at the same time of a fair amount of there. They had a lot of competitors that have all been kind of rendered obsolete. But what they initially solved for was a way to share video pretty easily, to upload it, and what the sort of one of the genius moves that they made early on was that YouTube can kind of, as we know, be embedded on every other site. So you don't have to watch a YouTube video on youtube.com, right? You can watch it
Yeah.
somewhere else. And that was one of the major reasons that they just sort of took off.
Mm. And really, like you said, it's part of Google, so it really is a search engine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was something that a lot of people don't really think about. I mean, it is for most people that use the site, it is like Google. It's a search engine. It's a utility. It's something that's sort of always there and reliable, and they'll use it to, how to fix something that's wrong with your car, right? Or likes your sink, how to do a yoga routine, how to bake a
Yeah.
certain like how to bake something bread, right? We all learned this during the pandemic. It like became like this lifeline, and from early on, it was one of the major reasons Google paid at the time in 2006. It was $1.6 billion, which was like an eye-catching number, and still is. But at the time, it was kind of unheard of. And a chief reason that they paid so much, like YouTube was had already by then was sort of proving to be this really hot culture phenomenon, especially with young people. But it was also like a destination for search. And Google was like, we don't want to be beat by this kind of company that also started
Right.
in Garage, and like they tried to build their own version of YouTube. It was called Google Video that like wasn't as popular. And
Yeah.
there's a saying
We don't know it. So yeah,
exactly.
clearly.
There's a saying in Silicon Valley that's like you build it or you buy it. They couldn't build it, and so they just went out and bought it.
Wow. Okay, so then, it seems sort of innocent-ish, but we know from court cases and from crackdown on the platform that it has had some pretty bad stuff on it. So let's talk about that seedy underbelly of YouTube, from where they were, the changes that they've made, but things that are still happening today that parents need to know about. Because look, our kids are given phones, and when we have a phone and access to the internet, it is access to all of this stuff, including pornography, including, things that we just don't want our kids exposed to. And we may not realize how they are being exposed to this. So let's talk about that part, just in service of the parents listening.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube's motto from the beginning was broadcast yourself, right? The whole mission
Yeah.
is let anyone be a broadcaster, and that was and still remains like this really profound thing, right? And as human nature, people are going to broadcast very dark and disturbing
Mm.
things, and in addition to very delightful and creative things. So, early on, YouTube decided, I think it's an important business decision, right? They're like, we're not going to have porn. And so and this was pretty early. They were, of course, it's like there's this constantly debate about what constitutes porn and graphic sex. But the way that YouTube is structured, right, is that like you and I can go up there and upload a video, and no one's preventing us from doing that. So early on, YouTube had like primarily like these small team of screeners that would either they relied on viewers like you and me to like, oh, this video is porn, we're going to flag it.
Mm.
And then they had these screeners that would kind of go around and find videos and take them down if they were violating their rules. Um, Eventually, they built pretty sophisticated software to do this, especially with like skin detection, right? So they're able now pretty effectively, like if someone uploads a graphic sex image, it comes down immediately. Early
Okay.
on, I think something that was certainly like people inside the company didn't expect this to be as volume of footage, but they had difficulty with child endangerment and like child pornography was something that people were uploading. And so this is something the YouTube immediately was like, we don't want this anywhere near this. We're going to like set up a pipeline to federal authorities.
Oh,
But
awesome.
they
Okay.
there was still, I mean, there's gray zone, right? Like something that they struggle with from the onset is like, what do you do with like home videos of children? And this is bleak, but like home videos of children in swimsuits playing in a pool, right? It may be innocent, where like the family's just uploading it to show with their friends and family, or they're just uploading it the same reason that anyone else uploads to YouTube. But it's like if that video is watched in a different context,
Hmm.
that's something that could be disturbing, and it can get them and in trouble. And I think early on their teams were like making a lot of these decisions sort of on the fly,
Mm.
and some of the early people who worked at YouTube, I think, had experience in some of this like live journal culture on the internet. But this was, it's hard for us again to appreciate how new this was. But back then, this was the first time that they were kind of unleashing this idea that like anyone could be blogging and producing video online that millions of people could watch.
Hmm. It's so interesting because 2005 is when I had my first child. And so I really, it's like I've grown up with it along with my child who is 17 now. So it's so interesting because those years are very just just really embedded in my mind, just seeing all of that, seeing Facebook, it was such an interesting time. And so essentially what the platform has done is it sort of got out of hand. I mean, I remember seeing videos that looked like they were superhero videos, and at the time those are what my kids wanted to watch,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't superhero videos at all. They were, I don't know what they were, but they were women in superhero costumes doing, all sorts of things that were adults and absolutely and completely inappropriate. So those sorts of things they have now fixed. Is that right?
Yeah, let me give if you like, kind of the brief history as much as I can here. Like,
Yeah.
so YouTube starts out like a lot of sites on the internet. There are at least rules. The internet is largely sort of ungoverned, especially compared to like broadcast television and radio, right?
Yeah.
But one of the rules that was set in the 90s around the internet is the Child Online Protection Act, COPPA. I may have mixed the extra P there. Privacy Protection Act, sorry. And that's a particular rule that has a bunch of safeguards in place, largely around like, collecting data from minors under 13. And so what YouTube did was, in its small print, the thing that no one really reads was like, this is a site for people that are 13 and up, right? It was like, they have like kind of a rough rating system, but cursing's always been allowed on YouTube. Like it sort of always
Mhm.
had this like late night TV kind of vibes, right? Like the most
Mhm.
popular stuff on YouTube is often similar to kind of like Mad TV, right? It's quirky, it like goes up to the line of acceptability. But the people inside the company, there were actually early attempts, multiple attempts to like maybe build a kids version, and what the legal team was like, we don't want to touch that at all because like this puts us in legal risk. We're going to be a site for 13 and up. And so what you had is around a decade ago, like two major things happened that were, I talk about this in the book, like the iPad came around. I believe it was
Yeah.
2010, 2011, and the iPad is like becomes this amazing like tool for parents to occupy kids'
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, just as a coincidence, like YouTube made this really important shift in the way that their system works, the way that they surface videos to you when you type in the search box, or like when you're watching like the related videos, the recommendations that and right now it's like the company says over 70% of views are from that recommended footage. So that's a lot of the videos of time people spend on YouTube are the recommended videos that like kind of watch next. Um,
Hmm. Right. Okay.
so what they started to optimize for was not just the amount of views that a video gets, but how long people watch.
Right.
And that's just a recipe for like iPad plus like an algorithmic system that is just geared towards like keep people watching as much as possible, is like really long, compelling kids videos. And that's what happened. Like almost, I think a decade ago there was not a lot of kids material on YouTube. in part because it wasn't seen as a place for children. Like you had Nickelodeon,
Right.
and then you have some of these people experimenting with, some of the early ones were around like toy unboxing and playing with toys, nursery
My
rhymes.
my kids would watch YouTube to make rainbow loom bracelets.
Hmm.
That
Oh
was
yeah,
huge 10 years
yeah.
ago. Rainbow loom was huge. So that's
Dolls,
what they
like
did.
doll
Yeah.
reviews,
Yeah.
and some of it was like really kind of really interesting creative output that wasn't on TV.
There was some
Um,
families that they watched that did funny things with their kids, added animation in. So like
totally,
I just really like I remember it all. And then
totally.
it started to turn into gaming stuff for my kids. And that is the most annoying sound I've heard in the entire world.
But
I'd rather hear nails on chalkboards.
you mentioned, yeah, you mentioned the superhero phenomenon, which was like probably kind of the one of the biggest crisis inside the company, and I'll go on
Really?
inside is the book. Yeah, is that they had this, so they built an app in 2015 for kids, and they're
Okay.
basically like this. The volume of videos that were clearly made for children was too big to ignore. Like they couldn't keep going on with this lie that was like we're just for kids, and like no one under 13 is watching without supervision. That clearly wasn't true.
Totally.
Um, and so they built this app. They were like, okay, if you have a kid, go use YouTube Kids. The problem that for a long time, and it's still a problem that they haven't really solved, is like I don't know how much time you spent on the YouTube Kids app or people in the audience. It's mostly geared towards like top like 3 to 5 year old, like really young
It's
children.
baby stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's a
baby
lot of
stuff.
baby shark.
Yeah, yeah, it's baby. I mean, Baby Shark.
Maybe that's old now. I don't know. Anyway.
It and it's if you're an 8-year-old, 10-year-old, kind of the tween era, like you want to watch what the big kids are watching. You don't want to watch the baby stuff anymore.
100%.
And so they're going to YouTube.com. YouTube did not invest as much resources in their kids app for a long time, and so and what was happening, and this is really it was one of these like really there are so many of these interesting moments across the history of YouTube where these trends pop up kind of out of nowhere, and it doesn't really make it like even for people inside the company like didn't understand where they come from.
Yeah.
um, and then what you have, the online creators are it's sort of like bugs drawn to light, like and you can't blame them, right? They are constantly searching for like the shifting sands of what's popular on YouTube, and it's never consistent. And so you see these trends kind of rise and fall, and one of them came up was superhero costumes, and part of this is the other issue with YouTube is that Disney it was for a long time refused and still kind of refuses to put Disney doesn't put its movies on YouTube. Like
Mm-hmm.
they launched Disney Plus, and so if you're a parent and maybe 7 years ago and you're searching for your kid, you want to look for Spider-Man, you want to look for Elsa Frozen. I think maybe you remember when Frozen came out.
Yes, of course.
uh, it was 2015, 2016, around this time.
Okay. The actual year.
Yeah,
No,
the
I
actual year.
yeah,
Yeah,
I have boys too, and so like we were not
got
as
it.
crazy for Frozen, although
um,
we did go and see it, but I don't remember exactly.
so there's sort of this interesting vacuum on YouTube where people are clearly looking for it. They're looking for Marvel movies. They're looking for like,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of like you can still find this today. There's so many videos. Like that's part of YouTube's the joyful thing about YouTube, right? Is if you watch a movie and you want to hear someone talk about it, no matter what the movie is, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And what's happening there was that people were kind of using that void and to get views, and some of it was innocent, and a lot of it became like hypersexual and weird and disturbing and pushing the
Yeah.
boundaries. And this was around 2017, 2018 when this happened, and in YouTube had this really sharp reaction because some of the videos got really inappropriate, and they kind of had this major crackdown where they deleted a bunch of videos practically overnight, and YouTubers started to call it Elsagate, which was an
Oh.
appropriate term. But it was when this very strange trend that was happening on the platform, and I talk about in the book that was happening for a very long time, and people inside the company just either willfully blind to it, or just didn't pay as much attention as it deserved.
It sounds like it's almost like they created a monster, like
Yeah,
that they're actually trying to catch up to the trends that they provide the platform for to begin with, and they don't even know
yeah.
what's coming
My
next.
my I'll give my teaser. The book opens with a quote from Frankenstein. So for that very reason.
Perfect. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I remember that time too, because I was just saying that like what my kids were watching, like there was this family that they would watch. I don't remember their name. But they did all this fun stuff and, always creating content. And they were, I don't know if they ever recovered their channel, but they were sort of a casualty or what do you call it? Anyway, they somehow got canceled or
Yep.
they had to apply because of COPPA, right? But
Yep.
COPPA was something that was forced upon them, right? The Children's Online, what did you call it? Children's Online
Online
Protection.
Privacy Protection Act. Yeah, forced upon creators. I mean,
Yeah, that they were identified as a creator of child content, and therefore
got it.
they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
their channel was being shut down. But
yeah.
so there was sort of this like sort of people getting caught in this, even though they didn't.
Totally. I mean, I think so. One of the so I guess two things. Like one thing that separates YouTube from like Facebook and Twitter and like basically every site on the internet was that they were the first, and for a long time have been the only platform to actually pay creators and pay them like meaningful money. Like some people have built pretty substantial careers, and so I
And
think when we
sorry,
go
can
ahead.
you clarify paying them through the ads that are running
Yeah,
or
paying
paying
through
them
the ads
paying
for them.
them?
So that was
Oh,
2007 was when YouTube started to do that.
okay.
And that was pretty early on, and at the time was like pretty rare to be sharing money with amateur video creators. And YouTube started with a pretty small group, and then around a decade ago, they opened it up to the masses,
Yeah,
and it became this an enormous economy where millions of people were making money from advertising revenue.
right. Yeah.
And so you have people that are not just posting videos for fun and entertainment or like for creative pursuit, that are actually doing it for their livelihoods. And you had families that would quit their day jobs, right, and
That's
become
right.
YouTube stars. And this was, to be clear, like this was what YouTube wanted. Like this was like they saw this as this kind of unexpected perk of their business. Like, wow, we can actually like create these new businesses, and we get people to, if they have a substantial amount of money, they're going to produce more and more. They're going to make more high quality videos. And so when I guess my long-winded way of saying that is like when then YouTube will sometimes, often when it makes decisions, like if it removes someone's video, or what's called demonetize, which is like remove an ad from a video. Usually for a majority of creators, all you're going to get is like an automated email, and it's going to say like you have the maybe ability to contest a decision, but it's just this is the way that Google, which owns YouTube, like chose to build this system, which is like they have a lot of they don't throw a lot of people at it. They throw software,
Mm,
and just because of the scale of the number of people that are uploading to YouTube,
yeah.
and so that like, they work with this automated way. And so fast forward to, it was 2019. YouTube was fined by the Federal Trade Commission for violating COPPA, for violating the children's privacy protection law. But basically, like the FTC, the government came out and said, actually, YouTube, you are knowingly serving videos and serving ads to children under the age of 13. And so since then, it sounds like what you're talking about was, since then, that now YouTube has been split. And you probably, folks in the audience probably know this when they watch a video. If it's made for kids, they're not going to be any comments there. It's,
Yeah.
and what you can't see, but like certainly the online creators know, is there's a different type of ad. So you can no longer, YouTube will no longer serve what's called like behavioral targeted advertising. And I'm happy to
Okay.
unpack that if you want me to. Um,
Well, there's a couple of things I want to say. Yes.
sure.
So I have a YouTube channel. It's Parenting for Connection. And that is, I upload videos. This podcast will be on YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a couple things. Yeah, there. I want to come back to that. But what you just said about the way they're sort of policing things nowadays is really through automation. And this morning, and I was just telling you this before we hit record, I got a message from YouTube, and it said our team has reviewed your content, and unfortunately, we think it violates our harmful and dangerous policy. We removed the following content from YouTube, and it happens to be from an episode that I did with Bailey Parnell called Safe Social. It's actually called #Safe Social, and they have removed the URL safesocialmedia.co. That's what they said was offensive. So, I mean, they obviously don't get it right all the time. And
Oh,
I
for
will
sure.
appeal that, because, of course, that is not offensive in any way, nor would I put anything out that is offensive to, hopefully to anybody. But yeah, so it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it is an automated, messy system. I mean, like just
Yeah.
to like do like the really bare bones explanation. Like there are it's since 2019, YouTube has shared that it's over 500 hours of footage are uploaded every minute. I'll say it again, like 500 hours of new footage are uploaded like
Wow.
every 60 seconds. Um,
500 hours of content every 60
every
seconds.
minute. Yeah. So it's mind blowing. And so it's like clearly by now it's a system that's like far too big for them to manage. So what they do have, they have teams, they have people who work for YouTube and Google, whose job is to sort of review content based on the rules that the company sets. They also rely on thousands of contractors who don't work for YouTube directly. They work for companies that like YouTube sort of contracts with. They're around the clock. They have a lot of people in India, a lot of people in the Philippines, in
Okay.
Ireland, um, and these are pretty like not well-paid jobs necessarily. They are
Okay.
trained to they're going to be looking at videos that are flagged in two ways. One is the software will flag it as like, hey, this video potentially violates our rules. We should look at this. Or you or I, any sort of average viewer, there's a little like flag next to a YouTube video. If you click that, then it goes into a queue. And so, when machines are not, software is not perfect.
Clearly.
Not, I'm not excusing YouTube here, but like the problem that they created for themselves is incredibly complicated. Right?
Yeah.
Let's take the something like as uh, like child endangerment is it seems pretty clear cut in certain instances, but like in others it's not. And one kind of really fascinating example that they dealt with is a very popular YouTube channel of 5 years ago. It involved this father pranking, like, doing pranks with his two daughters, his two, like I think they were
Okay.
like 7 and 9, um, and it was hugely popular. It's called Toy Freaks. The dad um, sometimes it would like they would there was this kind of another. This is going to sound strange, but it was really popular on YouTube, like dressing up as babies with pacifiers and bibs was a
Okay.
big thing. Um,
Mm.
and some of it was like kind of doing these fake punishments became really popular. And there was one video where, and it got a lot of media attention, and it was one of the daughters had a bloody tooth, like her tooth fell out, and the father filmed it. And then there were some stills in the video that looks like this girl is screaming in pain, right? You like lose your tooth, it's
Yeah.
really painful. Um, what ends up happening is like the father actually kind of like talks her through it. You watch the entire video. Oh, he actually explains to her that it's going to be okay and kind of soothes her on camera, right?
Yeah.
But she looks very uncomfortable and she's bleeding. And
Yeah.
YouTube has no way to confirm if that man in the footage is the actual father of the daughter. Right? These are very complicated questions, even when you bring in like educated um, people making these decisions and experts
And how
and
did the
more
tooth really fall
exactly
out? Like,
and more often they're people whose job is to go through as many videos as possible. And so what you're going to have is these kind of like collateral damage, the term that YouTube uses, like
that's the word I
um,
was looking for, collateral
yeah.
damage. Yeah.
And it's I mean they've refined this system. In the past 5 years it has I won't say better, but it's like it's certainly they certainly put more resources and attention towards this. But you're still like, you just happen to you, right? Like there
Today,
this
yeah.
is these cases where in order for, every time YouTube kind of tightens a filter, it's going to inevitably like have these waves of impact that, and like when you get 10 people in a room, not all 10 people can agree on something like hate speech,
Yeah, yeah, it's
right?
very,
Or like
I see what you're saying. It is rude.
bullying is something they've tried to do a lot of rules around bullying, but it's really like very difficult to define what bullying is.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting too, right? Like when we started talking about ads and monetization and demonetization, things like that, it's so interesting because you do see so many kids now saying, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a YouTube star.
Mm-hmm.
So many kids. And my kids have said the same thing, right? They wanted to have their own channel at one time. They wanted to, do silly things on YouTube. And I remember one of my son's friends coming over and they were young and the dad saying, oh, is he on YouTube? And I'm like, no, he's not on YouTube. Like, no, right? But can we go back to those ads that you were talking about? So
Sure.
what on the kids channel there aren't what kind of ads? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is after 2019, YouTube was fined and regulated by the FTC, and so now in their system, they're basically like two different types of ads that YouTube and Google, its parent company, will serve. One is like what we think is it's called a behavioral or targeted ad. And so that's like you've probably seen this a lot. Like if you've ever searched for, I don't know, you're trying to buy like a lawn chair or something like that, right?
Okay,
Like
sure. Shoes usually
you
for
search
me.
for
Yeah.
a couple, yeah, you're trying to buy a pair of Nike sneakers, and then you just like see that ad follow you around the internet. Like everyone's had that experience, right? That is
Oh yeah.
targeted ad. Like it is based on your search history, it's based on the websites that you visit. Um, this is like Google and Facebook are the two companies that is they're kind of dominating the industry. They grew into these Goliaths because they were very good at serving targeted advertising. Like they're very good at basically giving this data to advertisers that want to reach consumers at a particular time and place. And so
And that's
what
why websites use cookies because then on
exactly?
the other side of things, they're using Google Ads to advertise their product. That's why they show up on those
Yeah,
websites, they show up on Facebook, on Instagram, then YouTube, all the things. Yeah, it's
totally. And so yeah, Google
noxious.
is Google's the world's biggest digital advertiser. It is the company that is the best at doing this. And they have they have your search data, they have your maps, like your location data, and then they have like so on YouTube they have all the videos that you've watched, the videos you clicked on, like the types of and listen, if you're an advertiser, this is amazing, right? This is a dream because in
Yep.
some ways, like you want to be able to target. You want someone who watches a bunch of fishing channels or something, and you sell like
I
fishing
want
shit.
parents that have strong-willed
There
kids.
you
That's
go.
what I'm looking for. Yeah, who are frustrated. Yeah,
Um,
so I get it,
yeah,
and
it
I've
was
advertised a lot.
so since that rule, they can no longer run these targeted ads on videos that are called made for kids. And so,
Ah, okay.
um, and what creators I think understandably complain about is that YouTube is the onus is on the online creator. It's not on YouTube. So if you were to go make a
That's right.
video and we say like there's like as I understand it, it may have changed, but there's like a little dashboard in this or when you're posting a video where
Yep.
they're going to click. And if you say like don't click that made for kids video, you can. And I should also mention that the targeted ads are typically better paying than the ones that aren't targeted are just if you're watching a video about you're watching a video about kids doing like a certain challenge or a science experiment,
Mhm.
then you're basically like the advertiser only knows that you're watching this video, it doesn't know anything else about you. And that's just called like a contextual ad. And that ad is like YouTube can't charge as much for that ad because that ad is not as valuable
May or may not
to
be
the advertiser.
relevant to the viewer.
Yeah, it's often not relevant. And so what happens for if I'm an online, like a lot of online creators of kids and family content, since early 2020, just lost a lot of
That's
money
great.
after
That's
that
great.
change. I mean, what's happened during the pandemic is they got a lot of views because there are a lot more views on kids content during the pandemic.
Right.
But so what I was saying about if I go up and I post a video and I say it's not made for kids, and then the FTC decides, and as far as I know, there haven't been many cases of this, but the FTC decides like, no, this video is very much made for kids. Like I, as a creator, am the one that will be fined, not YouTube. Um, and there were, I mean, this is YouTube. I think made this argument that like we can't police this system. At this point, they have over 2 million creators making money on their platform, and so they're
Yeah.
like, we don't have the resources, despite being, I think, the world's like third largest company. They're like, we don't have the
So like I
resources to
feel
police
like they
this.
could have the resources.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're YouTube is an advertising company. Like their incentives are to make as much advertising revenue as possible. And they're trying to expand beyond that into things like merchandise commerce and like membership payments, but they're primarily
Yeah.
still an advertising company.
Yeah. So can I ask you about people who they have partnerships with, right? Like they have relationships with creators. So one in particular is PewDiePie. What is the deal with him?
Sure, PewDiePie was it's really he's a Swede, Felix Kjellberg, and so he was for a long time the biggest creator on YouTube by subscribers, and so probably everyone's familiar with subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he started in 2010, and he was sort of the most popular of this phenomenon that YouTube really invented of like video game streaming. Um,
Yes, it's a
and
pain
so
of my existence. I hate it so much because
I
it's
mean,
so annoying.
I will. It's clearly popular. It is. It worked really well for. I think I mentioned that it was around a decade ago that YouTube switched their system to like we're going to prioritize what they call watch time, which is getting people to watch as long as possible. Video game streaming is kind of the perfect category of content for that because it is
Yeah,
not to say that video game streamers aren't like creative and interesting people and like they have to
sure.
say often, but they have like funny kind of color commentary. But it is largely they're playing a video game, they're like taping themselves play the game, and then they just post it up to YouTube and
And
video
scream a
games.
lot and swear a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
PewDiePie was like the most colorful version of that. He was for a while the company like was very fond of him. Like he was bringing in a lot of money for them. He was this. He represented this new form of entertainment. Like PewDiePie is not really something that you wouldn't see on TV. Like, and he also I think what was really interesting to him is he like many popular YouTube creators, he will often talk to his audience. He kind of shares parts of his life,
yeah,
and shares his. And it's just like I've talked to creators about this too. It's really interesting. Like there's this expectation that you're being authentic. It's not like reality TV stars, right? They're a different type of fame, and
mhm,
that there's an expectation that social scientists call it parasocial relationships. So it's like the idea that your sons, if they're PewDiePie fans, they might feel like they know PewDiePie. They know
yeah,
Felix intimately. They've never met him, I assume. They've never met him before, but they feel like they know a lot about his life, and they feel really invested in his success.
yeah.
And
Interesting.
so that's just a different dynamic, and it has for YouTube it's paid off in these huge dividends where they can have these creators that become influencers. They're able to sell items pretty successfully. The dark side of that, and PewDiePie is a really interesting example, right, where he just brief version of that story, got into some controversies about 5 years ago around like anti-Semitic content and like playing with Nazi imagery.
Oh my goodness.
And so these were problems that once he was sort of punished for that, he lost business deals and relationships for that. His fans were still very, very loyal and devoted to him. And that caused like incessant headaches for YouTube that didn't know how to handle this problem with their biggest star.
Really interesting. Wow. So interesting. I knew we were going to talk about PewDiePie, and I have heard about him through my own children. And we had quite a debate this morning about it, sort of, kind of, but one for, one against
Mm.
in my two boys. And I noticed because I was curious. I noticed I watched some of his videos today, and noticed that one. Well, he's not talking about video games anymore. He's kind of talking about whatever, and actually just kind of it almost looks like he's desperate for content because there was one video I saw where he was making fun of somebody who was on Dr. Phil with another guy, and then there's an ad of with him selling a wallet and a keychain. So, I mean, it's I don't know what word to use to describe it, but it's sort of desperate to me.
So the book spends a lot of time with PewDiePie, and in part because I think he's just a really interesting character and person, and he kind of demonstrates a lot about YouTube success and then sort of what went wrong. He also he went through a period, and I haven't followed this very closely recently, but he went through a period where he kind of, like many YouTube creators, there was a lot of pressure to put out just constantly put out videos and
Regular content.
daily regular basis, and at the same time, what a really interesting dynamic is that YouTube for a long time was their initial business strategy was to get TV and video and movie and Hollywood to come onto YouTube. Like they were desperate they wanted to basically be at Netflix before there was Netflix. The TV industry for a long time, traditional media was like, no, we're not. Why would we give away our shows for free? Eventually start. I mean, now you can see like Jimmy Kimmel, like all of the sort of late night hosts put their
All
stuff on
those
YouTube.
clips.
It's
Yeah.
amazing marketing. It's sort of inevitable. The audience is there, and so you have YouTube creators like PewDiePie and many others who are suddenly competing with TV studios that are built to put out daily. Like they have much more money and staff, and so I think it is. I'm not defending PewDiePie at all, but I am. He certainly has had an issue that other creators have dealt with, which is, and they call it like creator burnout. Like,
Yeah.
this is it's not like TV and movies. Like, there's not sort of a set filming schedule and then you get a
Yeah.
break. Like YouTube is a grind. It's a constant grind for people. And so it becomes a thing that's some, like you use the word desperate, like
And you're creating another monster within the monster.
yeah, I mean I think the company is like worked on this, paid more attention to it. What's interesting, what's happening now is they're facing this really new and serious competition from TikTok.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and creators too now feel compelled to, I don't need to just be on YouTube. I have to be on TikTok. I have to be on Instagram Reels. Like,
Mm.
they are. It's a profession. It's so funny. You're right that like, and there are polls that show this, that like a lot of kids want to become YouTube stars, but I don't want to be like, it's a demanding, grueling line of work.
And it is work, and you've got to be creative. You've got to have video editing skills. You've got to, I mean, it takes a long time to do a video in any way, never mind coming up with all this crazy stuff. And yeah, like you said with PewDiePie, like, yeah, all of a sudden he's up against studios that have professional editors and sound mixers and the whole thing. And like all of a sudden you need sound and like all the things, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to I appreciate this, what you've told us so far, like in terms of advertising, what kinds of advertising, how they do try to clean it up. But at the end of the day, I think parents need to be the ones who are really looking out for our own kids. And also, my second son was born in 2008, and that was also the year that we got our first like big screen, flat screen TV, right? That was when we spent a ton of money on this flat screen TV. And I've always said that Aiden has never met a screen he doesn't like, and so he's so this generation. And I know that there are people listening that are exactly the same as me, and kids are even younger than my Aiden. So there's all of these kids out there that haven't met a screen they didn't like, and so I want to know, like, what do you want to like, what is your warning for parents? What do you say to parents who have kids that are on YouTube? Because it's inevitable. I have to say it, it's inevitable, right? So just sort of like, what do you want the parents that are listening to know? And then I just want to talk a little bit about what you have in our parent toolbox.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there, you're right. It's inevitable. Like I'm sure it's very difficult
It
to
is,
keep a
yeah.
child off YouTube. I think like one of the big takeaways, a major reason I wrote the book is sort of a call to pay more attention to the platform. Like if you go on, this has been consistent for years, but like if you look at the most popular YouTube videos by volume, they're almost all kids videos. They're like Coco Melon, this giant like there are these of Nikki, Diana show, like they're Ryan Kaji, Ryan's World, like they're Ryan's World is he's a very popular. He became up as like a toy unboxing, very popular YouTuber. He's 10 years old now. He's got a company worth like maybe like 30 million a year or something like that. He breaks in. So these are not just YouTube; these are like franchises, and it's really understudied. It is like journalists like myself spend not as much time like talking reporting and understanding the types of videos that are being made. Child development, I talked to the child development experts I've talked to. It's like those that focus on YouTube often point out that this is like very understudied. Academia moves pretty slowly, so like
Yeah.
that's part of it. So I mean, I think it's a little bit like YouTube has made a lot of changes. Like they put in things around recently. They talk about for kids. They have the settings now for like children, I think 13 to 18, where they can do private posts and upload a video and set it as
Mhm.
private. They have like these sort of digital well-being where they're sort of sending reminders like, hey, don't spend all your time on YouTube. They've been taking a lot of criticism for videos that are heavily commercial, where basically like, the entire video is like trying to sell a kid something. They've said they've started to take action against that. Like, I guess the main takeaway is sort of like um, it's very difficult for busy parents, but like pay
Yeah.
attention to sort of like the book is saying like there are important decisions this company is making about the reasons why the sort of the videos that you or your kids see, like the ones that are recommended to you, like the really popular ones. Some of them are popular for like they're very talented creators and like doing creative stuff, and I don't want to discount. Like I think that there are incredibly like there's like good educational content on YouTube that doesn't exist anywhere else. The company has struggled to like surface that and make it hard to find. I think that they are more attuned to, they certainly make, they respond to criticism, they respond to public pressure.
Mm.
And I think that when they're forced to do something like invest more in education and learning tools, they do. Like the people inside the company want to do the right thing around this and sort of understand this, and that's like I think just having people have a bit more like pay more attention and scrutinize just the types of videos that are becoming really popular on YouTube. I think that'll help shape the direction of the site and in many ways like of social media.
And I think what you're saying is, like, don't fall for it, because in a way we're all really being manipulated, right? Like the most popular videos that are on there are there for watch time, and those perpetuate each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I am. There are, I have a there's a character or like this couple in the book that's called Mother Goose Club that made, and they've been like on YouTube for a very long time, and I from what I've seen like and they're like pretty well respected by their educators themselves. It's like mostly for young kids, but they're making like solid educational videos. Um, and so I think it's like once you like do a little research to like find the sort of quality creators on YouTube and like subscribe to
Yeah.
them, and like you kind of have to go out of your way a little bit to like make sure that you're
Right.
watching them. And YouTube has tools around like building playlists and like so I think that that's something that I wish the company did more. I mean, the creators did too. Is like as a YouTube viewer, I wish it's like, oh, I want to be able to like, I really like this YouTube channel. I want to be able to support them, and I want to find people that are very similar to them. And that's something where you kind of have to be proactive. You have to lean in a bit, despite the fact that YouTube and social media is so built around like the passive, like flipping
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Well, and I think, as parents, we've got to do our best and also give ourselves a bit of a break because we are pioneers in this along with our kids, because this was new to me as an adult, new to me to navigate this and how much it's changed in the time that it's been out. And so what I hear you saying is be more discerning. Maybe, if you see something, maybe ask a couple of questions like, why is it like this? Or, how come this is like one big ad or whatever it is. And don't have blind faith in the platform, because not only can they not necessarily control it all, things sneak in and, you've got to be careful. And whether you like it or not, if you're giving your kids a device, that's your responsibility. Unfortunately, it is your responsibility to make sure we protect our kids, because there's this big online world there that as soon as we give our kids a device, that online world has access to our kids, and that's dangerous. They don't know how to fight back if we're
Yeah,
not.
I mean, I think like the company has, listen, they're huge and bureaucratic, and they move slowly, but they respond to pressure. Like they respond to like um, articles in the press, and they respond to politicians, and they respond to like when people are sort of paying attention to this stuff, and
So your voice matters is what you're saying.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
do, yeah.
yeah. I
In
mean, that's
most
like
reputable companies, I worked for a very large global company before I I did this work. And so I know it is true. So your voice does matter.
yeah, I mean, listen, that being like, I know it's like YouTube is not built for me and you as a viewer to have a lot of input, but your
Yeah.
decisions like matter as sort of like the types of creator videos you're watching, and like you're supporting the types of creators, and that's like built into a system that's every time you're watching something, you're giving money to that creator, whether you know it or not.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So thank you for this. So your book is Like, Comment, Subscribe, Inside YouTube's Chaotic Rise to World Domination. And you have essentially a synopsis of the book with some
Like Clip Notes,
highlights.
yeah.
It's the Cliff Notes version, if you will. In Canada here, we call it the Coles Notes version.
Oh,
And
nice.
we difference. And we have that in the parent toolbox. So if you're not a part of that, it's just www.parent-toolbox.com. And of course, this episode will be on YouTube as well as on all podcast platforms. But let me just give
As
you a
long as it's
moment
not
to
taken
just,
down.
yeah, as long as it's not taken down. So let's hope. Tell us just a little bit about what that Cliff Notes version of your book is about, and then we'll sign off.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a synopsis, my selling pitch. I mean, it is like the book goes into like a lot of detail about how the business of and like the up how YouTube operates and works, and the people inside the company. Like it's a company that's really like everyone knows what YouTube is and uses it probably every day, but like I bet a lot of people couldn't name the person who runs it, and
That's
the team
true.
of people, yeah, and or the people that founded it say. And I did my best to make it like a really compelling page turner too, and like it tells, and it goes to some dark places,
Yeah.
but it also I think has some moments of levity, and hopefully for people to feel like informed about this really important company, and come away with like an enjoyable read.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for educating us, for, being the guy that's willing to put his hand up and say, okay, let me tell you about this, because it is important for us to go in with our eyes wide open, because we don't want our kids to grow up any sooner than they need to. We want, of course, we want everybody to enjoy the platform and be safe. And that's really the most important thing. And as if parenting isn't hard enough, we don't need to add another layer of something else to worry about and worry about our kids. And that's everything that I try to do with this podcast. And so having a guest like you is just, I am so grateful for. So thank you so much, Mark. And people can find you, markbergen.com. You're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook, Twitter, you're on all the places. And of course,
Everywhere.
your book can be found.
I don't have a YouTube channel, but
You
that's
do
okay.
not have a YouTube channel. That is
Yeah.
very, very true. You do not.
But Bloomberg has many the great YouTube channels.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yeah, plug
And
that.
your book is available on Amazon. And where else can you get your book?
Hopefully everywhere that books are sold.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Robin. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this edition of my podcast, Parenting Our Future. I'm parent coach Robin McMahon, and if you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with someone who you think might also need to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe, and if you like my work, I would be grateful if you gave me a 5-star rating. For those of you who like my content and want more, visit me at yellingcurebook.com to get your copy of my book and to find other resources to help you. Until next time, I am wishing you and your family peace and connection.